13.1.4 Loss of biodiversity. While it is doubtful if any new species are being added through speciation into the Earth's treasury of species, there is no doubt about their continuing losses. The biological wealth of our planet has been declining rapidly, and the accusing finger is clearly pointing to human activities. The colonization of tropical Pacific islands by humans is said to have led to the extinction of more than 2,000 species of native birds. The IUCN Red List 2004 documents the extinction of 784 species, including 338 vertebrates, 359 invertebrates, and 87 plants in the last 500 years. Some examples of recent extinctions include the dodo Mauritius, quagga from Africa, thylacine from Australia, Steller's sea cow from Russia, and 3 subspecies Bali Javan Caspian of tiger. The last 20 years alone have witnessed the disappearance of 27 species. Careful analysis of records show that extinctions across taxa are not random. Some groups, like amphibians, appear to be more vulnerable to extinction. Adding to the grim scenario of extinctions is the fact that more than 15,500 species of worldwide are facing the threat of extinction. Presently, 12% of all bird species, 23% of all mammal species, 32% of all amphibian species, and 31% of all gymnosperm species in the world face the threat of extinction. From a study of the history of life on Earth through fossil records, we learn that large-scale loss of species, like the one we are currently witnessing, have also happened earlier, even before humans appeared on the scene. During the long period, that is more than 3 billion years, since the origin and diversification of life on Earth, there were 5 episodes of mass extinction of species. How is the 6th extinction presently in progress different from the previous episodes? The difference is in the rates. The current species extinction rates are estimated to be 100 to 1000 times faster than in the pre-human times, and our activities are responsible for the faster rates. Ecologists warn that if the present trends continue, nearly half of all the species on Earth might be wiped out within the next 100 years. In general, loss of biodiversity in a region may lead to number A, decline in plant production, number B, lowered resistance to environmental perturbation such as drought, and number C, increased variability in certain ecosystem processes such as plant productivity, water use, and pest and disease cycle. Cause of biodiversity losses. The accelerated rates of species extinctions that the world is facing now are largely due to human activities. There are 4 major causes. The evil quartet is the sobriquet used to describe them. Number 1, habitat loss and fragmentation. This is the most important cause driving animals and plants to extinction. The most dramatic example of habitat loss come from tropical rainforest. Once covering more than 14% of the Earth's land surface, these rainforests now cover no more than 6%. They are being destroyed fast. By the time you finish reading this chapter, 1,000 more hectares of rainforest would have been lost. The Amazon rainforest, it is so huge that it is called the lungs of the planet, harboring probably millions of species, is being cut and cleared for cultivating soya beans or for conversion of grasslands for raising beef cattle. Besides total loss, the degradation of many habitats by pollution also threatens the survival of many species. When large habitats are broken up into small fragments due to various human activities, mammals and birds requiring large territories and certain animals with migratory habits are broadly affected, leading to population decline. Number 2, overexploitation. Humans have always depended on nature for food and shelter, but when a need turns to greed, it leads to overexploitation of natural resources. Many species extinctions in the last 500 years, For example, Steller's sea cow, passenger pigeon were due to overexploitation by humans. Presently, many marine fish populations around the world are overharvested, endangering the continued existence of some commercially important species. Number 3, alien species invasions. When alien species are introduced unintentionally or deliberately for whatever purpose, some of them turn invasive and cause a decline or extinction of indigenous species. The Nile perch introduced into Lake Victoria in East Africa led eventually to the extinction of an ecologically unique assemblage of more than 200 species of cichlid fishes in the lake. You must be familiar with the environmental damage caused and threat posed to our native species by invasive weed species like carrot grass, parthenium, lantana, and water handshade ecornia. The recent illegal introduction of the African catfish Clarius garipinus for aquaculture purposes is posing a threat to the indigenous catfishes in our rivers. Number 4, coextinctions. When a species becomes extinct, the plant and animal species associated with it in an obligatory way also become extinct. When a host fish species becomes extinct, its unique assemblage of parasite also meets the same fate. Another example is the case of a co-evolved plant-pollinator mutualism, where extinction of one invariably leads to the extinction of the other. 13.2 Biodiversity Conservation. 13.2.1 Why should we conserve biodiversity? There are many reasons, some obvious and others not so obvious, but all equally important. They can be grouped into three categories: narrowly utilitarian, broadly utilitarian, and ethical. The narrowly utilitarian arguments for conserving biodiversity are obvious. Humans derive countless direct economic benefits from nature. In case of food, it is cereals, pulses, fruits, or firewood, fiber, construction material, industrial products, example tannins, lubricants, dyes, resins, perfumes, and products of medicinal importance. More than 25% of the drugs currently sold in the market worldwide are derived from plants, and 25,000 species of plants contribute to the traditional medicines used by native peoples around the world. Nobody knows how many more medicinally useful plants there are in tropical rainforests waiting to be explored. With increasing resources put into bioprospecting is exploring molecular, genetic, and species level diversity for products of economic importance. Nations endowed with rich biodiversity can expect to reap enormous benefits. The broadly utilitarian argument says that biodiversity plays a major role in many ecosystem services that nature provides. The fast dwindling Amazon forest is estimated to produce through photosynthesis 20% of the total oxygen in the Earth's atmosphere. Can we put an economic value on this service by nature? You can get some idea by finding out how much your neighborhood hospital spends on a cylinder of oxygen. Pollination, without which plants cannot give us fruits or seeds, is another service ecosystem provide through pollinator layers, bees, bumblebees, birds, and bats. What will be the cost of accomplishing pollination without help from natural pollinators? There are other intangible benefits that we derive from the nature, the aesthetic pleasures of walking through thick woods, watching spring flowers in full bloom, or waking up to a bulbul's song in the morning. Can we put a price tag on such things? The ethical argument for conserving biodiversity relates to what we owe to millions of plants, animals, and microbe species with whom we share this planet. Philosophically or spiritually, we need to realize that every species has an intrinsic value, even if they may not be of current or any economic value to us. We have a moral duty to care for their well being and pass on our biological legacy in good order to future generations. 13.2.2 How do we conserve biodiversity? When we conserve and protect the whole ecosystem, its biodiversity at all levels is protected. We save the entire forest to save the tiger. This approach is called in situ, that is on site conservation. However, when there are situations where an animal or plant is endangered or threatened, organisms are facing a very high risk of extinction in the wild in the near future and needs urgent measures to save it from extinction, ex situ, that is off site conservation, is a desirable approach. In situ conservation. Faced with the conflict between development and conservation, many nations find it unrealistic and economically not feasible to conserve all their biological wealth. Invariably, the number of species waiting to be saved from extinction far exceeds the conservation resources available. On a global basis, this problem has been addressed by eminent conservationists. They identified for maximum protection certain biodiversity hotspots regions with very high levels of species richness and high degree of endemism. Endemism, that is, species confined to that region and not found anywhere else. Initially, 25 biodiversity hotspots were identified, but subsequently 9 more have been added to the list, bringing the total number of biodiversity hotspots in the world to 34. These hotspots are also regions of accelerated habitat loss. Three of these hotspots, that is Western Ghats and Sri Lanka, Indo-Burma and Himalaya, cover our country's exceptionally high biodiversity regions. Although all the biodiversity hotspots put together cover less than 2% of the Earth land area, the number of species they collectively harbor is extremely high, and strict protection of these hotspots could reduce the ongoing mass extinction by almost 30%. In India, ecologically unique and biodiversity rich regions are legally protected as biosphere reserves, national parks, and sanctuaries. India now has 14 biosphere reserves, 90 national parks, and 448 wildlife sanctuaries. India has also a history of religious and cultural traditions that emphasized protection of nature. In many cultures, tracts of forest were set aside, and all the trees and wildlife within were venerated and given total protection. Such sacred groves were found in Khasi and Jaintia hills in Meghalaya, Aravalli hills of Rajasthan, Western Ghat regions of Karnataka and Maharashtra, and the Sarguja, Chanda, and Bastar areas of Madhya Pradesh. In Meghalaya, the sacred groves are the last refuge for a large number of rare and threatened plants. Ex situ conservation. In this approach, threatened animals and plants are taken out from their natural habitat and placed in special setting where they can be protected and given special care. Zoological parks, botanical gardens, and wildlife safari parks serve this purpose. There are many animals that have become extinct in the wild but continue to be maintained in zoological parks. In recent years, ex situ conservation has advanced beyond keeping threatened species in enclosures. Now, gametes of threatened species can be preserved in viable and fertile condition for long periods using cryopreservation techniques. Eggs can be fertilized in vitro, and plants can be propagated using tissue culture methods. Seeds of different genetic strains of commercially important plants can be kept for long periods in seed banks. Can you tell me in the comment section at which temperature they are kept? Biodiversity knows no political boundaries, and its conservation is therefore a collective responsibility of all nations. The Historic Convention on Biological Diversity, the Earth Summit held in Rio de Janeiro in 1992, called upon all nations to take appropriate measures for conservation of biodiversity and sustainable utilization of its benefits. In a follow up, the World Summit on Sustainable Development held in 2002 in Johannesburg, South Africa, 190 countries pledged their commitment to achieve by 2010 a significant reduction in the current rate of biodiversity loss at global, regional, and local levels.